Welcome back. Today we have another Books with the Same Title video, which is one of my favorite series that I do on here. Probably technically really the only series, unless you count TBRs as a series. But anyways, it's one of my favorite things to do, and I found some pretty fun ones this time. They're even nonfiction, which is probably my first time doing books with the same title as nonfiction. There maybe have been one or two books, but as far as I recall, this is the only one. And this is specifically just nonfiction books, so that makes it fun that way too. Anyways, the title that we are working from today is If You Ask Me, and then both of the books also have subtitles that'll help us to distinguish between the two that I'm talking about. I did technically listen to both of these as audiobooks from the electronic source stuff that my library does, so I don't have physical copies to hold up or anything. But what else is new? This happens with my stuff that I do all the time. Anyways, so first off, we're going to talk about If You Ask Me, and Of Course You Won't. This book is by Betty White, and as you probably are aware, she died like just before the new year. And I was reading one of the obituary type things, I think, for her, and it mentioned her having written books, and I was like, ooh, that sounds fun. So I looked, and this is one of them that my library had. I think there are several more from my library, and I liked this one enough. I'll probably get more of them, but just so you are aware, Betty White wrote books, and this is one of them, and I thought it was really nice. It was a little memoir. It talked about a lot of her acting experience and her life in the acting world. It did talk a little bit about her animal activism and stuff as well, which is one of the parts of her life that I've always really admired. And so it was fun. It was a lot of really cool stories. I liked hearing about old Hollywood. That's one of my favorite, if I'm going to be reading a biography or a memoir, that's one of my favorite themes for it to have, is to be that time period. So that was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed getting to hear more of her life story, see what it was like for her to be in show business in the early days when some of that film stuff was just barely starting up, and just hearing about how her life went and how she loved getting to have the opportunity to just stay in showbiz her whole life, and how kind of unique that was to not feel like she needed to retire, and how lucky she felt to always kind of have jobs and stuff still. It's just a really fun book, and if you get the audiobook, it is read by Betty White, so if you want that little touch of her back in your life because you are missing her, that's a fun way to get it. And yeah, like I said, I'll probably pick up more of her books too, because I think some of them focus a little more on things like the animal activism and stuff too, which would be another one of my interests that I'd be super wanting to jump into at some point. So there's that as well. So that's If You Ask Me, and Of Course You Won't by Betty White. And then the second one that I have to talk about is If You Ask Me, Essential Advice from Eleanor Roosevelt. This one is based on a column that Eleanor Roosevelt wrote. It was like an advice column type of thing. And then it's also got a lot of biographical information to kind of give context to the questions that are addressed within the book. So it features topics like war and religion and raising your kids. What was it like to be married to a president, kind of a thing. So it covers a wide variety of topics. I thought it was a really interesting look at things to see her perspective. Some of it feels like it meshes really well even with our current time period, and some of it's like, oh, you can tell how this is of the time that she was from, and it was just cool. I don't really do advice column or newspaper reading in my day-to-day life, but seeing the things that people were asking her about and how some of those questions are still so relevant to today, and just getting her advice and her thoughts on it was really fun and unique, and I really enjoyed it. So if you're looking for kind of a nonfiction that's got kind of treading that line between a biography and some memoir type stuff, this one's a really great one for that. And if you're just looking for advice and think she might have some helpful advice, because she was a very smart lady and she had a quite extended career in like politics and stuff, so even some of that felt just informative to me as someone who doesn't do as great following some of that. Getting just some of that background was really cool too. And I liked seeing that it addressed topics too, like racism and stuff. Like people would ask her, and during like the war times in particular was where some of the questions were pulled from. But it'd be like, well, how can we be friends with these people in this country if they're from like Russia or Italy or Japan when, you know, we're like at war with them? And her answers were like, we have to be, or we're never going to have peace if we can't get along with our neighbors. And I have friends of all these nationalities, and it was just a really cool book. I really enjoyed it, and I liked getting that kind of peek into her life and learning a little more about her that way, because I know she was a cool lady, but I didn't have much background on it, and now I have a better background on it. So if you ask me, you should read both of these books. And I did enjoy having both of these books as a reading together and doing this particular books with the same title project. I have no idea what February's is going to be, but this was a fun one to start off the year for January. So let me know if you happen to have read these or think you might read these after what I've said about them. If you have any other books that have the same title, that might be fun too. I don't know what other styles of books might come up, if there are actually any fiction with it, or if it's like self-help books might come up with this title or something too. But if you have any recommendations that way, I think a part 2 of this particular title might be fun too. So that's all I've got for now. I hope everyone's having a lovely January and doing all right in the start of this new year. And that's all I've got for now. This is the Uma Harper signing out.